Raichev, Classifying and Labeling Assets, Jasdeep Sidhu and Yanko Raichev. Classifying and labeling assets. The point of classifying and labeling assets is to allow people like top managers to determine what types of classified information exists in the company and who is responsible for it. In other words, who owns it. Classified information can be found in a wide range of media, from paper documents and verbal information to electronic documents, databases, and storage such as hard drives, DVDs, CD, tapes, and etc. Defining sensitive data. Personally identifiable information, otherwise known as PII. Personally identifiable information is any information that can be used to identify, locate, or contact any individual, either in combination with other sources that are easily accessible or on their own. Several parts of this information sets that might be utilized to identify a certain individual could consist of a name, email address, biometric data, telephone number, fingerprints, or social security number. Protected health information, otherwise known as PHI. Protected health information is any information related to the state of health, the provision of health care, or the payment of health care that can be also linked to a particular person. However, PHI is interpreted quite broadly and includes any kind of media, payment history, or patient records. Protecting health information came mainly because of the increased incidences of hacking attacks. PHI may be related to the present, past, or future health of an individual, either in physical or mental terms. PHI may also include the current condition of any individual regarding health. In general, PHI can be utilized for the identification of any specific individual. Proprietary data. Proprietary data is a very valuable company asset because it represents a product that is a mixture of hard work, internal dealings, and organizational know-how. This information is often confidential. Scholarly source. Our scholarly source was the Audit of Personal Information Management for Policy Analysis, Research, and Evaluation. Also known as PAIR, in this article we can verify the lengths that are taken by an organization to protect the PII of its employees. The most commonly used is the audit process. The objective of this audit was to determine whether policy analytics or analysis researchers and evaluators, project authority for PAIR activities adhere to the conditions on handling, disclosing, and destroying personal information, which are documented in the approved submissions. The audit process created by PAIR is thorough, with its main task being to ensure that PII is collected for the organization and is protected and properly destroyed at the end of any organizational projects. Defining classifications. Government. The first three levels of data are collectively known as top secret. It is the highest level in this classification scheme. For example, information which can cause unpredictable damage to the national security. Secret, very restricted information. For example, information which can cause significant damage to the national security. Confidential, a category that encompasses sensitive, private, proprietary, and highly valuable data. For example, unauthorized disclosure of such data can be expected to cause serious, noticeable damage to the national security. And the final level is known as unclassified. It is the lowest level in this classification scheme. For example, this data is neither sensitive nor classified. The private sector of defining classifications. The private sector consists of four main labels as well. Confidential is the highest level in this classification scheme. For example, extremely sensitive and internal data. The data is extremely sensitive and intended for use by a limited group of people. Private, data for internal use only. Sensitive, a classification label applied to data which is treated as classified in comparison to the public data. And finally, public, the lowest level of classification whose disclosure will not cause any serious negative consequences to the organization. Understanding data states. Data has three states. Data at rest, which means stored data, for example, hard disks, tapes, CDs, DVDs, USB sticks. Data in motion, which means the data being transferred on a network, and data in use, which is actively using data. Managing sensitive data. Managing sensitive data information is a process in which a mark or a label is placed on a different data set to identify their classification level. For example, top secret, secret, confidential. Digital marking is another type of marking, which includes digital marks or labels of the classification embedded into pages as a watermark or as a header or footer. Handling refers to the secure transportation of media through its lifetime. For example, the personal can handle data differently based on its value and classification. Our second scholarly source was the obfuscation of sensitive data for incremental release of network flows. When it comes to the management of sensitive data, there can be many threats to worry about, as described in this article. Unfortunately, network flows carry extremely sensitive information, and this discourages the publication of those data sets. Indeed, existing techniques for network flow sanitization are vulnerable to different kinds of attacks, and solutions proposed for microdata anonymity cannot be directly applied to network traces. Thank you. Here are our resources. Please feel free to look through them and learn a little bit yourselves. Otherwise, have a great time. Thank you. Smash like and hit subscribe. Goodbye.